Hi everyone, this is Kjetil or Live for It on the forums. I'm now running Linux, as you can see, and as you can also see, it's Amos Kittens in the upper corner. You might wonder why I've chosen to go with Linux. Well, my interest is really just getting the Amos programs running in AmigaOS, but I've run into several issues and problems which are mind-boggling hard to find, and I'm a bit fed up of having to reboot every time I do something wrong. So at least until I've found the worst corruption bugs, then I will return to AmigaOS. So what I'm really aiming for is compile some parts of my program under Linux and test it under Linux where the memory protection is good. This will allow me to find the bugs early, not after it's corrupted the operating system and everything is frozen, because then it's too late. So I want to find the bugs early. I don't want to blame the operating system for my bugs in my program. So this way it's no chance. It has, if it writes outside the program, it will crash. This is what good memory protection does for you. It will prevent nasty, ugly bugs from being in the way. So yeah, right. So what I have done is I set up a shared folder to my Git folder on my documents, so I can access all my Git repositories from within my VirtualBox. This allows me to continue working on it and easily commit the changes to the repository. And this allows me to work more directly with it and be more productive. On Amiga, I usually copy to an USB stick and move the USB stick to my PC, and I plug it in and copy the files under the Git folder, and then I commit the changes, which is really tedious. I know there's SGit, I know, but last I tried it, I don't fully trust it. Sorry, guys. I know I spent lots of time on that tool, and it would be really great if it works exactly like Git. But it's not just that, it's the tools that you have on Windows. I use Git crack, what is called? Sorry, excuse me. It's Git Kraken, and it's free software for non-commercial use. They ask me if I've used it commercially many times, and I say no every time because I'm not using it commercially. I'm maybe a bit productive on it. So, and I use GitHub Desktop. So it's a very nice tool, which is this one. So you can see all the changes I committed to the repository, and the changes I can commit to the repository. So I have one, so I can push the changes to the repository. We have I changed this line because this was how it was recommended for making .a files on the Linux system. I'm not an expert on programming Linux, but I used to code in Linux a long time ago, so before I got my Amiga one. So I'm not that inexperienced, but I'm not. I have to look up a lot of things. So basically, this is RSS one. So I'm not going to commit that right now. And then we have git kraken, git kraken, sorry, git kraken as well, octopus. It's more a squid maybe. It's a bit slow to start up, but I enjoyed this program. You can see all the changes in here, and it's also very easy to commit changes. Just usually there's a kind of ball on top here. You can select, and there's a file you want to modify on the right side. Modified files, and then you can select which files and which changes. And this program is very nice because you can pick parts of the source code you've changed. So this is why I prefer using git kraken, because in git desktop you can commit all the changes from one file, but it's very hard to pick this part and this part and this part, which I think makes more sense, because if you do a lot of changes, many changes are not related to each other, so it's very silly to commit everything in one bulk. So git kraken is one of the tools I'm using, and I really wish those tools were available on Amiga. Okay, so I have my Amos Kittens project, all my files here. I think you can scale it up somehow. I'm not sure how. But, okay, it doesn't matter. So when compiling for Linux, I do make -F for selecting the makefile Linux, which this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have one makefile for each operating system. You don't have to run configure or something like that to figure out what you have, because that is a lot of work. So as you can see, there is one error and some warnings. So theoretically I have one. If I look at my makefile, as you can see, I'm using Sublime. I haven't registered, sorry. Should register this program because it's a really good program. Really should. But they have many users, so I'm not particularly. I think they are doing quite well, so I'm not concerned about it, but they deserve some money because they made a really good text editor. It's just So the first thing that is trying to compile is on my objects is command cpp. So as you can see, I haven't come long far with this in the very early stages. So I have a lot of things to do to get all those things compiling. And as you can see, I split it up into directory, operating system, and then there should be Linux here. And so for example, the thing that's really nice about this program is I can mark all those, and I can, you see what I did there? I changed all those lines to Linux, which means that I can this is also very nice if you want to, let's see, find something, and I want to find commands, or maybe .cpp, find all. See our cursors on all those cpp files, so I can .c or cpp. Very nice. So very useful feature, and I use it a lot. So yeah, so this file command cpp is the first thing that has to compile. Okay, first thing first. Amos Kittens is divided into two programs. There's the engine part and the interpreter part. The engine part I'm not so concerned about, because that's a really small part of the program. The big part is the interpreter, which I need to make sure is working really well. So the thing that I want to get working is the interpreter and the Linux. The other things not so important. So I was thinking about using pthreads for all threading stuff, but right now I don't need to think about it. So let's not think about it. I think also I will open the folder which this project is located, because this enables me to work more easily with the project. Close without saving. We don't need to save it. So let's have a look at this file, the engine H file. It's down here. Engine H file. We have nothing called process under Linux, so this is for Amiga OS only, if defined, Amiga OS 4. So this will only compile for if you have Amiga OS 4. Now if I type make it tells me now it compiles the command, and then we have one step or because now we have managed to compile commands. Now it tries to compile Amos Kittens cpp file, and we're getting errors prosexec.ho, and this is also just for Amiga OS, so it terminates there. So we have to find Amos Kittens cpp file. This is in string h file. Okay, so it's in the string h file. One string. So this file doesn't really require this at all. It's possible that Amos Kittens.all needs this, so I'm not going to remove it, but I'm going to do it if define omega was 4, blah, 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 and if. So let's do make, and then it tells me it needs exec, and this is the total exec. Oh, I added the sound file. I should have edited the string. So if define omega is 4, blah, blah, and if. So this seems to be a problem that is in many of the files. So I can just maybe fix it like this. Okay, I did it differently here because actually this is the best way to do it, because then you can do or defined like was, right, for example. Okay, here we have a bit of mess because we have song files from as you can see also in the command cpp file, I have made one. Those includes are required for Linux, and they didn't. It worked perfectly without those on the Amiga OS, so I put those in there. Then it might be that I don't need those in Windows, so therefore I've decided to just put the stuff here. I could add those. Probably some of those stuff will be required on Windows, but they might be different includes, so not so important. Just clicking through those files, just making sure. Yeah. So some of the problems I have it if I compile in the Visual Studio. I have to make like pack push and pack pop to prevent auto alignment in the compiler. A different way to do it. The compiler is different and not compatible with the GCC, so just using pre-compiler stuff I can work around that problem. So I can support Visual Studio. Already there's some stuff that compiles in the Visual Studio, so you see the Microsoft SC where this is like a version number for Visual Studio. So if there is a Visual Studio version number, it would pick those routines. If not, we will use the standard way, which is the one for GGC. Probably better ways to do this, but that's how I did it. The sdafx.ho file is here. The stdafx.ho file is required in the Windows, more or less. It tells me, so I included that and put some defines here that is useful to prevent summons and warnings in Windows. Probably the better place to put it in is in the pre-compiler direct stuff. So this doesn't work under Linux, not under Amiga OS. This doesn't work under anything else than Windows. Then we have this. So Linux doesn't have bool with the capital bool, false with the capital true. So these are like redirected. Sysalloc with which is my way of saying that we should use the operating system system allocation instead of the C standard lib stuff, which is a bit of bloatware. I more like to use the operating system allocations routines and maybe cut down on the bloat. I know they're adding lots of stuff to the C. There's already a lot of stuff in the C. It's already jungle. So please don't add more to the C language. We don't need it, really. You need to improve things like Endian. Endian would be nice to have, if you can do 32T B for big Endian pointer. That would be really great. Or just plain old 32T B value, because then then you can work better with cross compiler, doing stuff like things that works very well on Amiga and it would work very well on PC, and vice versa, without having to think about engines, because then it would be the compiler knows that you should use the reverse instructions, which is if you have a little endian architecture, is the big endian version of those instructions. So many of the processors are actually what is called they aren't actually little or big endian CPUs. They have they can support both methods of storing values into the memory. So I guess they are called B-endian. I haven't found any other explanation what B-endian means, because there's no way to you have to have one way to store it. It has to put memory into bytes into memory somehow. You can't really work around that. So B-endian, I believe, is a CPU that supports both big endian and little endian. That's my understanding of it, but I might be wrong. Right, let's see. So this is what I wanted to use for Amiga OS. It would be, I should probably put it in here, if define Amiga OS 4, and if, so this will be like free vec. So let's find alloc vec. So we have this. I can just click here, I think. Yes. That's one very nice feature about that I like about this program. It's just clicking on the search result and you have. So this complicated thing is the Amiga equivalent of that. So let's drag this and find it. We have this one. If the one Amiga OS. Unlock this one. Oh no. Somehow I managed to copy. Yes. So this is the Amiga equivalent command of that. I don't know why they did it on Amigas, but they use a lot of vargs, which I don't understand, because they have to handle some kind of loops or something like that, which I can't understand why it would be efficient, but they chose to do that on the system. Okay, so one thing you can see is that I'm using MF private, which is private memory. This is very good for in Amiga OS you want to make memory local to the program. This is how you do it. Tell it to be private. If all developers use this one, it would mean that a lot more programs would be safer to run on the system, because you will actually get good warnings and warnings at the correct time. So yeah, so this one should be like this, like that. Actually, this should actually be more like actually this is very interesting, because you know, Drobobs, Drosbobs in from anywhere, actually it can be from any process. There's two processes here. Maybe MF private is actually a problem. It should be public. So this might actually be a bug. Maybe this is one of the bugs I've been looking for a while. So what I want to do here is extend my so let's call those private, sys private, alloc private, public. So sys public alloc, sys public alloc clear. So we have Amiga, it's called shared, but I think it's easier to just remember public. That's the old name. thing was that the public was used everywhere in the Amiga OS, and it didn't really mean what it's supposed to mean. Therefore, it ended up being misused everywhere in the Amiga OS. So therefore, they changed it to MF shared, which would tell it that this isn't the old memory type. This is a really shared memory, and this is really private memory. So it was changed to make it more clear what each of those things were. So we want to do the same here. So really, public So now I have a common way to alloc memory, a common way to dealloc memory, and I can, if there is difference in between the operating systems, it can be hidden under here. So this is now if I do sys public alloc clear, sys public alloc clear, and right, size. See? Actually, it looks much cleaner than using those directly. It wouldn't slow down my program because it's macro. Macro is basically text replacement at compile time, so it replaces syspublic alloc clear with the other one. So this isn't causing cache stack stuff or anything. It just hides the fact that this is Amiga OS stuff. So I'm making my own language kind of in my in C, because I'm making those words mean something else. It's a bit like Rosetta, you know, translates one to another, like the stone. Rosetta Stone. Let's just try and make see what happens. So math home is we have a problem with math home. So we can try commands math. Okay, so this is also a very nice thing about working with Sublime. You can tap edit and knows the program is running, and it will pop up in the open Sublime. So I can easily work with terminals and the program and jump between those. So I started using Sublime when I started working for a company called Techno Bingo. This one I have to up my ante, up my game, what do you call it in the US. But so I had to learn a Ruby, and then I got presented it to had to use some better text editor, because I was used to using Visual Studio for writing Visual Basic programs or stuff like that. More like used to working under the Windows environment when I was at work, and Linux when I was at home, and or Amiga OS. So, but when I coded on Linux before, I just used Midnight Commander, simple text editor, which is also very retro. So you can sudo apt install mc. So I think it's just see yeah. So yeah, so you can see this text editor. So the nice things about this text editor is that it's just like edit on Windows, actually. Very easy to use. I don't understand why people use anything else like V or those programs. This is so simple. It's just F2 for save. And F10 for quit. This works excellent from terminals. So I just used to program from terminal without X Windows. This was back with Red Hat 5 and Red Hat 6. So long time ago. But that program was really nice. It was very simple for me, because I used to code in QBasic, and QBasic also has similar text editor like the Midnight Commander. So yeah. Let's just exit here. Okay, I have two keyboards on my desktop, which is just confusing. Should really hide one of the keyboards. Also now I don't need to have two keyboards, because I'm not coding on Amiga, I'm coding on Linux, so shouldn't need that. Let's try make F Linux. So now we got an error in the file I messed with. It's very typical. Tells me there's something wrong down here. It's very true. Size. Typical. That's one thing I hate about this editor, is that when I type this, it will add another. It's a bit annoying. I guess you get used to that. I haven't got used to it yet, but because I'm mostly coding on Amiga and just in simple text editor. I just think it's just easier to just work with simple, fast text editors than the big EDS. And I don't mind this program. I don't mind Visual Studio. It's not that. It's just I have more control when I don't use some big IDE, so I don't get all the hype about using one. Maybe just me. Maybe I'm just strange like that. Maybe I just need to learn it better or something like that. But bank cpp banks.h file. Define Amos 4. So this is just about getting it to compile really now, removing the stuff that works on the AmigaOS by defining or requiring AmigaOS to include those files. So I'm not if you're coding like looking at this and you're like a almost basic programmer and you're probably used to using rem and rem out everything. This is not like that. It's not removed. It's like cherry picking. This works for this OS, this works for this OS, and this works for another OS. I like to do the same with Amos Kittens. I like to add something like that, so you can check if this is for Linux, Windows, or Mac OS, and do that. But basic is the fine thing about basic is that it has some very standard in command set, which is all the commands is available more or less. You don't but there are some things that are different, like the file system on Linux is different from the file system on Windows or on AmigaOS, or Mac is different because at Mac OS X actually is a BSD in bottom, more or less. So it's kind of a Linux version or Unix world, so very much similar to Linux. I wonder about that a lot, because it seems like people are also making a big fuss. So this is a different operating system, and they're added to this list of different operating systems that are supported. But really, macOS isn't that different from Linux or BSD, or I don't get that. Sure, it has a very nice desktop. It has a bit big icons. It's like for people who can't see very well, a bad eyesight or something. I'm not sure. I don't get the vibe with Mac OS X. I got the vibe with the classic Mac OS. I think the Mac OS 7 was very nice looking. It's some simplicity, and I like that much. So, as you can see, I have a lot of stuff. So just even getting it to compile is a lot of work. People ask why aren't there lots of programs on Amiga. Well, we're working part-time. Really is like this thing we do after work. So very productive people, actually. But you guys don't see it. That's why I thought, why not? Why not show you guys what I'm doing? Why it takes so freaking me long time. So because maybe people haven't been coding at all. They're programmed something in their life. Lots of people are occupied with other things in their and do not have time for things like this. So it's perfectly understandable, because it takes huge amount of time. It's unbelievable. So if you're married with kids and have a wife to take care of, I don't think you're going to be a very productive coder. Sorry. If you have other dreams. And I've been working almost every day on this project now for a year, so it takes a huge amount of time, really. And I'm a bit surprised about actually seeing that Francois is actually picking up interest in this. After he made Amos professional source code available, I thought it was the end of it. So that's why I started on this project, actually, because if he wasn't going to do anything with Amos, then why didn't I do it? Right. So that's why I started on it. And also I offered to him to use my work to kickstart his own work, and I can collaborate on it. It's under MIT license, so he could make a commercial version and just push it. Then I can do something else. He wasn't interested, so this is we could have maybe speeded up the development of this thing, or Amos. So, but if he wants to do it his own way, that's okay. It's just waste of resources. Graphics. It's down here as well. Sometimes this is a bit stupid about the compiler. Should why don't they to report stuff like that? It would be very useful if you can just, because if it includes the same file twice, it's probably going to just cause problems. I guess I know I have added sometimes like if define file name and define the file names in that thing to just prevent it from being included twice or stuff like that. You have Progma once in the Visual Studio, which you can see. It also prevents the same thing. So just getting that in there. If define omega is 4 and if so, yeah. Actually, I haven't really coded a single line now. I just putting in preprocessor definitions, telling it not to include those special Amiga OS only include files. And this stuff here is like general C includes. It's more about the C language standard. So I guess some people call it POSIX. I'm not sure if it's actually POSIX, but there's a standard for a lot of commands are like bundled and they are like statically linked into your exe file. This is why C files are usually a lot bigger than like assembler code or programs on Amiga, for example, which is just machine instructions or hexadecimal values in a serial written like in a serial or a sequence. So you like the one hex number is one instruction, and then you have some values for that instruction, like this is register this, and this is the value this, and how do you want to shift x number of bits left or x number of bits right or stuff like that. This is like encoded into the same hex number, so you can decode one hex number and you can translate that into an ASCII text string, which is the assembler language. So the machine code is the hex value, what is actually stored in memory, and the assembly language is the text representation of that. So if you never coded assembler or anything like that, so that's really how it works. It's that simple. It's a translation from a text string to an hex value that represents the same thing. Yeah. So here we get another error, actually a warning, which I don't have to think about. Warn in used result, which like here is the free signal. I think why we're getting warnings now is actually a very good thing. It means that we have fixed all the header files. There's no more Amiga specific stuff in the header files. So the sleep command isn't declared in the cpp, the Amos Kittens cpp file, which the sleep is command in Linux should be defined in not defined, which is defined in uni-std in the Linux, which means that if I include that, we should fix all the delay problems. and as you can see, there's to get day off. I think many of those errors are similar to those errors in the commands cpp file, which I already fixed. So if I do copy all that into Amos Kittens cpp file, I'll just include that stuff here and try to compile it. We will probably resolve some of those bugs. And then we have a bptr, which is a pointer in AmigaOS, so you can maybe do a definition of that into the file that's always included into every project I have. Since Windows is forcing me to do that anyway, I can I'm thinking I'm just going to stuff it in there. It'd be cool to just compile it in the Visual Studio as well, but then I have to add all the CPP files into the project, and I have to add all the H files into a project, which and I forget about the make file system, which works perfectly well. I've done that before, but so I have already done that for APTR. I have to find void bptr. So those APTR, bptr are historical pointers in AmigaOS. I think one of those pointers are like shifted to the right, so it's one bit less than it should be. So it's because it's 16-bit aligned in the original Amiga 500 system, because it was a 16-bit processor with 32 bits registers, like a hybrid CPU. External bus with data bus of 16-bit, which was multiplexed. A very strange architecture. Lots and lots of arguing back and forth if it's a 32-bit CPU, if it's a 16-bit CPU, and I think PC people always like to call it a 16-bit CPU just to annoy us, and we like to call it 32-bit per CPU because it was clearly superior to those stupid 16-bit programs on the MS-DOS. Yeah, so okay, so signals I haven't really find. I'm not sure if I can allocate signals under Linux. I looked up alloc signal Linux. I don't think that's I have like a kernel book I can look up. I think maybe it's easier to just look in the index there for stuff like that. But okay, so all the header files are done, and this is cool because then we can go to git kraken and we can commit all those. Okay, so here see we have got an error about E. Yeah, it's error here. which is why it's very nice to have a tool like this, because it shows all the different things that's been changed, and this is really not correct, so you can discard that. And this is we have moved those things in here. This looks fine. This looks fine. This looks fine. Fine. Yeah. So this is what we really want to do. We want to use our macros instead of depending on OS specific routines. So this is cool. This is cool. 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 So we can just click, and okay. So I could probably do that on all those, but I'm not. I'm more for its user, so there might be a difference. Cool, 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 and cool. Okay, so this is a bit different because it's makefile, so I'm not going to do that. And we can also take this. So let's commit those changes. Commit. Alright. Okay, so it's now in the list here. Those are all the files that changed during this coding session. And yeah, let's see here. We have the makefile. Change it. Makefile for Linux. Okay. Okay, added includes needed for Linux. Okay, and then I can just. Okay, so this is what we have on in the cloud, and this is what we have locally on our computer. So just push those to the cloud, and this should make life a lot easier for me and everyone else that want to try to get it compiling under Linux. Because now they don't need to worry about all the header files that has includes for AmigaOS only stuff. It will just tell the compiler that those are not needed, compiling for Linux. As you can see, there's we didn't actually manage to compile everything, but we managed to get all the header file problems out of the way. You know, the thing is that this we can do make clean, make file clean. Okay. Skal vi se. There's no object in the Amos Kittens. There is not Amal color. Okay. Usually they should end up there. I don't think they should end up anywhere else. I find it strange that it should jump to this one. Because that means that it defines the command O file, and it should have gone down here. Amos compiler, blah 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 blah. Which is pretty far down here. So this is why I think it's strange that it tries to compile this first. Okay. Anyway, so that was all I wanted to show you guys really today. It's progress and it takes time, and I will try to get this compiling as soon as I can. That's all I can do really. I really want to get this compiling because then I can start really finding bugs and really making sure that everything is watertight, that you can trust Amos Kittens, run it on a daily basis without worrying about why is my computer crashing, why is this program freezing, why is this and that, and you know, and you guys want to write programs that works well, so you have to like depend on my interpreter. So this is like ultra important to make sure that it works well on your system. So or else it will be really annoying to you spent lots of time coding your Amos program, and then people are running it and they, oh no, it's crashing, and it's not your fault, it's my fault. Because the thing about basic is you can't really do those nasty things you can do in C programming or assembler, which makes life a lot easier, and I think you manage to keep more hairs on your head that way. But you shouldn't be afraid of C programming. You should just probably write C programs under Linux, import them to Amigos, or write them in Amigos and test parts of them in Linux or Windows, because those operating systems have better memory protection and will help you 100 times in resolving problems and fixing there's so many things that can go wrong in the programs, and like the signless problem is very easy to get wrong, and if you mess with signless, you can really crash memory because then your pointers or counters are counting wrong, and you can go end up in infinity loops and all sorts of strange things. So there's a really good reasons why you shouldn't depend exclusively on Amigos when writing programs. I like writing programs on Amigos because then I can test and see what the results of what I'm doing, which is why I prefer writing programs on that system. When working with web browsers and stuff like that, you must use cross compilers because the development tools on Amiga, they are not great. They fail to do the simple task of creating the configuration scripts that you're supposed to use when you're actually compiling the stuff. And if those are not working, and the header files and everything that it should generate isn't there, then it won't compile, and you have no idea how to fix those things without those things. And it's just insane how complicated some of those scripts are, configure scripts. Man, are you guys coding configure scripts or coding programs? It's insanity. Hello, man, it's just Linux. Most of this cross-platform stuff is running on different types of Linux. Why do you guys need such a crazy amount of complex shit? Can't you just split them up in makefiles like I do? That would be so great if you guys didn't do that all that crap. I really hate it. So don't do it, guys. Keep it simple. Yeah. Bye bye.